The monkey who worshipped the sun. Long ago in the Himalayas, nestled in a peaceful valley near a border village, there stood a simple hermitage of holy men. These wise ascetics, led by the Bodhisattva himself, an elderly sage with a long white beard and deep watchful eyes, lived lives of meditation and virtue. Each morning, the villagers would come with offerings of food, honoring the monks who brought wisdom and blessings to their community. The hermitage was a place of perfect peace, where gentle voices chanted prayers and the air itself seemed to glow with spiritual light. One day, the hermit brothers prepared to walk down the mountain path to the village to seek alms. The wise Bodhisattva and his fellow monks, carrying their simple wooden bowls, set off in peaceful procession down the winding trail. They left their hermitage empty and unguarded, trusting in the goodness of the world. But hidden in the trees nearby, a pair of bright, clever eyes watched them go. It was Bunda, a large mischievous monkey with thick brown fur and a long curling tail. The moment the monks disappeared from sight, Bunda's face broke into a naughty grin. The moment the coast was clear, Bunda the monkey swung down from his tree and bounded into the hermitage. With wild glee, he began causing absolute chaos. He knocked over the monks' water jars, crash, sending water flooding across the floor. He tore their simple bedding and scattered their few belongings everywhere. He swung from roof beams, knocked over meditation cushions, and left muddy paw prints all over the walls. When he was finally satisfied with the magnificent mess he'd created, Bunda scampered back to the forest, chittering with laughter. This became his favorite game. Every time the monks left, Bunda would sneak in and wreck their peaceful home. Some days later, when the hermits returned from the village, they found their home a complete disaster once again. But the kind villagers, grateful for the monks' wisdom, came to visit with wonderful news. "Holy fathers," they said, bowing respectfully, "we know you must walk far each day for alms. From now on, we shall bring food offerings to you here at your hermitage." The wise Bodhisattva and his brothers smiled and blessed the villagers gratefully. But hidden in the trees above, Bunda the monkey was listening to every word, and a clever, cunning idea began to form in his mischievous mind. The very next morning, when the villagers arrived with their baskets of food, they gasped in amazement. There beside the holy hermits stood what appeared to be another monk, a large brown figure with arms raised high toward the rising sun, perfectly still in an attitude of deep worship. But look closer, it was Bunda the monkey. He had positioned himself right next to the real monks, his arms stretched upward, his eyes closed, his face the very picture of spiritual devotion. The villagers were awestruck. "Look," they whispered. "Even the animals worship with these holy men. This monkey is blessed. He too seeks enlightenment." They began placing food offerings at Bunda's feet alongside the monks. Day after day, Bunda continued his clever act. He would stand with arms raised, looking perfectly holy, while the kind villagers praised him and gave him the best fruits and sweets. But the wise Bodhisattva, with his deep watchful eyes that saw through all deception, observed everything in silence. He noticed the monkey's paw prints on the walls inside the hermitage. He saw the mischievous gleam hidden behind those closed eyes. He recognized the same monkey who had been destroying their home. The Bodhisattva said nothing at first, watching patiently and waiting for the right moment to reveal the truth. Finally, the wise Bodhisattva decided it was time to speak. As the villagers prepared to leave more offerings for the holy monkey, the elderly sage raised his staff and spoke in a calm, clear voice. "Good people, I must tell you the truth. This is no blessed creature seeking enlightenment. This is the very same mischievous monkey who sneaks into our hermitage whenever we leave and destroys everything. Look at his paw prints on our walls. He does not worship the sun, he merely imitates us to trick you into giving him food. His piety is false, his devotion is pretense. True virtue comes from the heart, not from outward displays." The villagers gasped and looked closely at the monkey. Sure enough, there were the muddy paw prints on the walls, and the moment Bunda realized he'd been exposed, his holy expression vanished. He dropped his arms, showed his teeth in a guilty grimace, and scampered away into the forest as fast as he could, chittering in embarrassment. The villagers bowed apologetically to the wise Bodhisattva. "Forgive us for being fooled," they said. "We will give our offerings only to those who are truly virtuous." The hermit smiled gently. You have learned an important lesson today. False virtue cannot deceive the wise. True goodness shines from within and needs no performance. And from that day on, Bunda never dared to return. Moral: false virtue cannot deceive the wise, and true goodness comes from the heart, not from outward displays. The Wise Merchant and the Desert Demon. Long ago, in the great city of Varanasi, there lived two merchants. Each prepared 500 carts loaded with precious goods to trade across the vast desert. The first merchant was young and boastful, eager to set out quickly. The second was older and wiser, known for his careful planning and calm judgment. Both caravans would face the same treacherous journey through the burning sands. The foolish merchant set out first, racing into the desert with his 500 carts. The burning sun blazed overhead, and the sand stretched endlessly in every direction. His caravan carried large jars of water, enough for the long journey ahead. The oxen trudged forward bravely as the city of Varanasi disappeared behind them in the shimmering heat. In the middle of the desert, a strange sight appeared. A magnificent chariot pulled by gleaming white bulls rolled toward them, carrying a tall figure in dripping wet robes adorned with blue lotus flowers and white water lilies. Behind him rode a dozen attendants, all soaking wet, with lotus garlands around their necks. "Turn back your water carts," the figure called out cheerfully. "There is a great lake just ahead, with plenty of fresh water for everyone." The foolish merchant believed every word. Without thinking twice, he ordered his men to smash the water jars and pour out every drop. "Why carry heavy water when a lake awaits us?" he laughed. The caravan workers happily broke the jars, watching the precious water soak into the hot sand. The mysterious strangers smiled and rode away, disappearing into the desert haze as quickly as they had appeared. There was no lake. There never had been. The caravan pushed forward, but found only endless sand and scorching heat. Without water, the journey became impossible. The foolish merchant's 500 carts stood abandoned in the moonlit desert, their goods scattered across the dunes. The desert wind blew sand over the silent carts as the pale moon looked down upon the scene. Weeks later, the wise merchant prepared his caravan with great care. He gathered his workers and spoke firmly. "Guard every drop of water as if it were gold. No one is to waste even a sip without my permission. The desert is full of tricks, and we must trust only what we can prove with our own eyes." His men nodded, respecting their leader's wisdom, and the caravan set out into the desert. Deep in the desert, the same mysterious figure appeared before the wise merchant's caravan. The tall stranger in wet robes called out the same cheerful message about a great lake ahead. But the wise merchant studied the strangers carefully. He noticed their eyes glowed with an unnatural red tint. He looked at the ground beneath their feet and chariot and saw no shadows at all. The wise merchant raised his hand and spoke calmly. "You say it rained ahead, yet I see no rain clouds in the sky. I feel no cool wind that comes before a storm. I hear no thunder in the distance. Your clothes are wet, but you cast no shadows, and your eyes glow red. You are no travelers, you are demons of the desert. We will keep every drop of our water." The yakka's smile vanished, and with a furious howl, the demons dissolved into thin air. As the caravan continued, they came upon a sight both sad and fortunate. Hundreds of abandoned carts from the foolish merchant's caravan lay scattered across the desert, still loaded with valuable goods. The wise merchant ordered his men to set up a strong camp and take the best goods from the abandoned carts. They posted guards through the night, watching for any more tricks from the desert demons. The wise merchant's caravan crossed the desert safely, arriving back in Varanasi with double the goods they had started with. The people cheered as the mighty caravan rolled through the city gates. The wise merchant became the most respected trader in all of Varanasi, known not for his wealth, but for his wisdom. And the people remembered his lesson well: always trust what you can prove, and never let sweet words lead you astray. Moral: hold fast to what is true and proven. Those who follow wisdom reach safety, those who follow falsehood face ruin. The Carpenter and the Mosquito. Long ago, in a small village on the edge of a great forest, there lived a kind old carpenter. He was the best woodworker in the land, known far and wide for his beautiful chairs, tables, and carts. Every morning, He would sit at his workbench, humming happily as he planed and carved. His young son worked beside him. The boy was strong and eager to help, but he had one big problem: he always acted before he thought. One hot summer afternoon, as the old carpenter sat at his workbench carefully smoothing a plank of wood, a tiny mosquito came buzzing through the workshop. Buzz, buzz. It flew around and around, looking for a place to land. Then it spotted the carpenter's smooth, shiny bald head gleaming in the sunlight. Perfect, the mosquito seemed to think, and it landed right on top of his head with a tiny tickle. Ouch, the old carpenter yelped as the mosquito bit his head. He tried to swat it with his hand, but the pesky mosquito was too quick. It flew up, circled around, and landed right back on his head again. Son, the carpenter called out. There's a mosquito on my head and my hands are covered in sawdust. Could you please shoo it away gently for me? He went back to his work, trusting his son to help. Now, a wise person would have simply waved their hand over the carpenter's head or used a soft cloth to brush the mosquito away. But the son was not known for his wisdom. He looked around the workshop for something to use, and his eyes fell on a big, heavy wooden mallet, the kind used for hammering thick pegs into wood. "Don't worry, Father," he said with a confident grin. "I'll get that mosquito in one blow. It won't bother you ever again." Before anyone could stop him, the son raised the heavy mallet high above his head and brought it crashing down toward the tiny mosquito on his father's head. Whack! The mosquito, being quick and clever, buzzed away at the very last second. But the heavy mallet didn't miss, it landed right on the poor carpenter's bald head. "OWWWW," the old carpenter howled, grabbing his head with both hands. A bump as big as an egg popped up on his shiny scalp, and he tumbled right off his stool onto the ground. The carpenter's son stared in horror at what he had done. Father, I'm so sorry," he cried, rushing to help the old man up. "I was only trying to kill the mosquito." The old carpenter rubbed his throbbing head and groaned. "You were trying to help, I know, son," he said painfully. "But look what your help has done. The mosquito escaped without a scratch, and I have a bump the size of a mango." Meanwhile, the tiny mosquito buzzed happily away, completely unharmed. Just then, a wise merchant who had been passing through the village witnessed the whole scene. He helped the old carpenter to a seat and smiled kindly. "I have traveled to many lands," the merchant said, "and I have seen this lesson played out many times. A foolish friend who acts without thinking can cause more harm than a clever enemy." The mosquito was small and its bite was tiny. But the cure was 100 times worse than the problem. The son hung his head in shame, finally understanding his mistake. "I should have thought before I acted," he said quietly. "A gentle hand would have done the job much better than a heavy mallet." The wise merchant nodded. "Remember this always," he said to everyone gathered around. "Think before you act." The biggest problems in life are often caused not by our enemies, but by well-meaning friends who act without wisdom. A small, careful action is always better than a big, reckless one. And from that day on, the carpenter's son always stopped to think before doing anything at all. Moral: think before you act, for a foolish friend can cause more harm than a wise enemy.